Hello there, this is a live stream, but I will actually be reading the story of Bob of Wynncraft. Wynncraft, yeah. So, I have the tea already. So how you basically unlock this is, you gotta find Bob Bob the zombie, and then you gotta kill him, and you get a chair. And then you just, drop the tea, opens up, and you see his footsteps. You just follow these footsteps the entire way.
I gotta go to the base. I'll be back.
Okay.
Pick up you and Mom.
Okay.
And we'll get you McDonald's or something.
Okay.
But be prepared to get off when I get back though.
Okay.
So we can go.
I'm just reading something on this live stream. Then I'll be done. So yeah, you basically follow these footsteps until it leads you here. Then it opened up, and I did this on an earlier live stream, but the noise was weird. And then you enter, then you leave Rackney, and enter into the library of Bob. Now basically you see these stack of books, and I'm going to read them all. The Legend of Bob. And all this other stuff. Chapter 1. Sorry, did you think we're done? 854 years after the portal was first opened, Ragney suffered one of the largest raids ever recorded on the western soil. Although the famous forts of Ragney and tombs were deemed impenetrable, this was unfortunately not the case when seas of monsters brought by the curse came knocking on the front gate. Despite having fought for centuries in the cursed war, Ragney's army numbers were high, and many men laid down their lives to protect their families within the walls. However, the sheer numbers pressed against the door broke the hinds, and the large gate fell into the bridge, and the large horde recorded entered the city. Many of the residents were slaughtered, maimed, or infected by the onslaught of creatures. Those able to hide hid in the sewers, the vast series of tunnels that went out of the city into the foulest place the humans could create, the poison. Now, we move on to chapter 2. Legend of Bob. Is it in the Chapter 2. The idea was to combine two of the most horrible things: the untreated sewage and the dark cells containing Wynn's worst criminals, to add to the suffering. It really was a horrid place, but in a time like this, it was the safest place to be, and the women and children sought refuge in these trenches. Sewage. During the fight, and a woman who never said her name nor where she had come from, she certainly wasn't one of Ragney's own, gave birth to a baby boy on the cold floors of the sewer. Thought the women accompanying her did all that they could. The unknown woman did not survive the childbirth. The horde lasted 6 days, and the sewer folk did not know if the baby would make it. The conditions were so warm. I don't know why. I keep thinking of Studio Ghibli in these scenes. Legend of Bob. The Legend of Bob. Chapter 3. This is a dramatic reading. Against all the odds, the child made it, suffering no more, but the smudge of dirt crossed his cheek. To everyone's amazement, he was adopted by Ragney's poorest resident, a single mother named Momo. He worked in a local bakery, carrying bread and cake onto the palace. palate, taking whatever he could to get away with. Despite his mother being poor, she was none the less intelligent and taught the child, who she named Robert, everything she knew. Taught him to read, write, and to a degree to fight. Robert was never a popular lad, always treated differently. His skin was a shade of gray, unnatural to those of Radney, who have always been fair-skinned. As such, he didn't have many friends, and wasn't held particularly well among the older citizens either. When he was 12 years old, a horde found its way into the city once more, like it did just over a decade before. Okay. End of chapter 3. Here's chapter 4. The Legend of Bob. Chapter 4. Although far smaller than the predecessor, the horde was nonetheless a threat as Ragni's army was so wounded from the last encounter. Beacons were not lit from the scouts and caught the entire city by surprise. Not Robert though. He always keeps a knife he stole from the butchers in his belt to protect the ones he loves. Being so poor, Momo's shack was on the outskirts of Radney, so was one of the first to get hit. Robert ran for the house, finding it empty, but hearing the gasping of air from below. Entering the cellar, he found his mother lying bleeding beside a recently stabbed creature. He went to her aid, knowing it would be in vain. She simply nodded at him. They had made an agreement when Robert was 8 that if she ever became infected, she wanted him to end her life, rather than endure the gruesome prolonged infection that had no cure. End of chapter 4. This is chapter 5, chapter 6, chapter... Yeah, not bad. Legend of Bob. Only 8 minutes in. Nice. Chapter 5. Mama placed in Robert's hands a piece of parchment with a crude bloodstain drawing in 4 areas through a strange name under it he hadn't heard of. In the fires of the fight, Robert fled from the city, wielding not his butcher knife, but a pair of pitch-black knives encircled with symbols of that glowed a purple color, a coat and a pouch holding what little food he had left in the home. He headed east to the sandy affected decayed by his mother's shrine, the one of the knife symbol and the number 1. When Robert reached it, he found one man who did nothing but held out his hand, and Robert placed the only thing of value to him, the dark daggers in his hands. The man begged to tell Robert of what he must now do to aid in the war. He must go to the 4 masters of the Wynn province to learn their magic and skill. If he is to lend his hand in the cursed war. Only once had he mastered one skill would he be given the key to the next master would accept. End of chapter 5. Chapter 6. The Legend of Bob. Chapter 6. 6. Yeah, 6. After 5 years of training to become an assassin, Robert was now 17 years old and incredibly powerful. The master clerk who had told him his time was now up with him, and he could have to progress to an archer. Chad took Robert's dagger to which the handles began to experimented. The soldier must start from scratch. Must start from. Wait. Give me a second here. I am probably the best for this. I'm gonna do this another time.